Shabbat Shalom to those who are tuning in this evening. We wish you Shabbat Shalom as well. A few things to note. First, I want to welcome Rabbi Cadden's Judaism class from PLU. Can you raise your hands? Who's here? Excellent. Nice to see you all. And if you have questions during the service, let me know. A little about this prayer book is it opens from the right to the left. And on the right side of the page is usually the prayer in Hebrew, and it has the translation of the prayer. And on the left side of the page are interpretations of the prayer. And we'll go back and forth, sometimes doing the Hebrew text, sometimes doing an English text, just so we invite you to join us and feel free to share in the reading of prayers as you feel comfortable. Another thing tonight is that we are in our congregational CDC level of community level of medium, meaning we're requiring everyone to wear a mask this evening. It's been pretty green, which has been very, very nice, but we are asking people again to wear your masks and just to understand the importance of keeping each other safe. We're going to begin tonight on page 10 in your prayer books. At the top of the page, this prayer saying, Hine ma tov u'manayim from Psalms, how good and how pleasant it is that brothers and sisters dwell together. And here we are. So join with us. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 We're going to continue with a reading responsively on page 6 in the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship together. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. And we continue now with Kabbalat Shabbat. These are melodies and songs that are specific for Shabbat. And we're going to begin with one from the Psalms of 97 on page 14, Or Zarua la Tzadik, meaning light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. And it's a Hasidic melody. But first, we're going to light the candles. I got so excited about Kabbalat Shabbat. Okay, so we're going to light the candles. Stacy Van Wagner, surprise, would you mind lighting candles tonight? So we're going to light the candles. On page 3, there's a reading, and on page 2 is the lighting of the candles. And I'll give you my book. Here you are. I got it? You got it? Okay. Great.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. And now we come to Kabbalat Shabbat as we celebrate in song, beginning on page 14, towards the bottom of the page, 4 lines up from the bottom. Or Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Yisrael Lev Simcha. Ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 O Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Zaroa Latzadik, O Yisrael Lev Simcha. O Yisrael Lev Simcha. Ya la 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 ya la la ya la Now we move into welcoming the Sabbath bride on pages 20 and 21. We'll do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. On the 9th verse, we will actually stand up and symbolically welcome the bride in the entrance of our sanctuary, as we'll just turn that way. And we celebrate by saying, "Come, beloved, to meet the bride. Beloved, come to greet Shabbat." Join with us. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, o shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litehillah. Lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelecha, ki mekor habracha, berosh mikedem nisucha, sof maaseh b'machshavat hilah. Lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hit'oreri, ki orech komi ori, ori, ori shidaberi, kevod Adonai alayich niglav. Lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat galav. Penei Shabbat nekabelav, lecha dodi likrat galav. Penei Shabbat nekabelav. Boi v'shalom ateret balam, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emonei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrat galav. Penei Shabbat nekabelav, lecha dodi likrat galav. Penei Shabbat nekabelav. Please be seated. We conclude this opening preparation of Shabbat with the Chatzi Kaddish, which divides different parts of the service. And so this divides from the intro to the beginning and the actual service. And you can find it on page 26. Yitkadav, yitkadav, shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divrach chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv veimro. Yesh meraba mevarach, le'alam ulam me'amayav, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekodeshah. Barichu le'ela mincho birchatav v'shiratav, tushbechatav v'nechemata, damiran be'ama ve'imro. And we rise now for the formal call to worship on page 28, also at home. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, ay 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 ay, ay la 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 la, ay la 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 la, yai la la la, yai la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach leolam vaed. Hamevorach, hamevorach leolam vaed. Continue on page 31 at the top of the page together. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. and on page 32. Avat olam Beit Yisrael amechavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu lemadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu v'komeinu nasiach b'chukecha v'nizmach b'divrei Toratam u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu u'bahem negeh yomam v'layla v'ahavatcha Atasir mimenu leolamim, Baruch ata Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We continue on page 36 with V'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, vidibartam, vishivtecha, beveitecha, uvelechtecha, vaderech, uveshochbecha, uvekumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot bein einecha, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. At the top of 39, we'll read together as we prepare for Micha Mocha on page 40, which shares the joy and the gift of freedom from Egypt. Together, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Malechotecha ra'u vanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli, zeli ano ve'amru. Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. On page 43, the Hashkivenu prayer asking God to shelter us from life's storms, like one outside right now, but in other ways as well. The top of page 43, and then we'll sing the Hebrew at the end. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim, ve'al kol amo, ve'al Yerushalayim shalom, ve'al Yerushalayim, ve'al kol amo, ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. We continue as we celebrate Shabbat on page 44 with Vishamru at the top of the page. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We're going to continue now with the Amidah, the standing prayer. It begins on page 46 with this preparation and then continues for a couple pages, and we rise. Join with me. Adonai sifatai tiftach ofi agitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei v'neihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayecha ko berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, O matir asurim, O mekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, O mido melach, Melech memit, O mechayeh, O matmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata le'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated as we continue to Tefillah, these sets of prayers, and we're going to continue at the top of page 55 together. May these hours of rest and renewal Open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 57. On the middle of the page. You are with us in our prayer, our love and doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. And our Modim prayer on the next pages, we've been having a tradition for 2+ years during COVID, where we've been asking people, this prayer talks all about thanks and thanking God for the things in our lives. And each week we've been asking people, what is something that you are thankful for from last Shabbat to this Shabbat? It can be something small, it can be something great. It can be a simcha, a celebratory moment, birthday, an anniversary. And we just go around the room. And it doesn't have to be the parting of the Red Sea, but each of us experiences miracles and things that we're thankful for every day. I would start by saying that I was able to take some time off with my husband Joel after many, many months, and it helped me to understand what's really important in life and what things are less so. And so it was a very nice way to be together and enjoy some sunny days. And we're going to go around the room. And if you have something, feel free to just raise a hand and share it with us. Don't be shy. Yay, so you were able to celebrate your nephew's birthday. Beautiful. Rabbi Cadden?
This past week was my grandson Etan's 8th
Etan's 8th birthday.
birthday.
This week, this past week? Mazel tov. Yes? Wildflower seeds are growing and being planted in the rain. Thank you. They love the rain. Yes. Thanking for the rain that helps the plants grow. I'm repeating this just so people at home can hear it as well.
I was able to get all my garden in and all my seeds planted where the moon cycle is just today. Yesterday and today was the best day to get the seeds planted for June.
See, now I know something new. Getting the seeds planted, this is the time.
Well, yeah, the moon cycle.
The moon cycle, exactly. Beautiful. Yes. Family, friends, and opportunities. Beautiful. Yes.
Girl Chronicles, I found some delicious hummus and tabbouleh at Trader Joe's.
So comments, yes, at Trader Joe's. I like it. Important ones. Yes.
Taking and finishing the last of my senior year AP exams.
Mazel tov, finishing those AP exams. Wow. Wow, talking to a sister he hasn't connected with as much in 4 months. Wonderful.
I was finally able, after a long few months, to come back here.
Welcome back. It's been a while, and she came back tonight in this wonderful weather. Good for the seeds, though. Anybody else? Did you have one? Nice, time with grandchildren and spending time together. Thank you. Yes. Yes, one word. Excellent. Getting the recycling finally done from the car. I love it. I need to do that too. So, for all these things we're thankful for, we say a chatimah, which is the last part of each of our prayers on the bottom of page 78. You can see it there as we read together. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. And this set of prayers of tefillah ends with the prayer for peace, which is on page 60 as we join together. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol ha'shalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol ha'shalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amecha Yisrael b'chol eit u'v'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. After all the words we've read and sung together, we pause now for some silent time, some inner thoughts, or you can read some of the readings on page 63. On page 62 in the middle. Yol ratzon imrefi demands of my heart be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromav, O yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite one of our wonderful congregants forward, Debbie Friedman, who is going to share some amazing things, as she always does. She's an amazing historian, among many things, singer, historian, wonderful person, and she's going to share with us this evening the sermon.
Thank you very much. We've been hearing the word Yom quite a bit lately. It simply means day in Hebrew. So last week we observed Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, by placing 6,000 yellow flags on our front lawn. This Wednesday was Yom HaZikaron, from the Hebrew word to remember. It's Israel's Memorial Day, originally for fallen soldiers, and now it honors also civilian victims of terrorism. And yesterday was Yom HaAtzmaut, commemorating Israel's 1948 Declaration of Independence. We started that celebration last weekend with a concert at Beit Havarim, and I have to say, it was wonderful to see people singing and dancing together. And if I do my math correctly, next year will be Israel's 75th anniversary. That is something that I hope we could take into account in our congregational planning. But before we look to the future, you guys know me, I'm going to look back to our history. I wonder what was going on in Tacoma in 1948. What did Tacoma's Jewish community look like in the 40s? And how much did they know at the time about the emerging state of Israel? Well, the Reform congregation, Temple Beth Israel, had been under the leadership of Rabbi Bernie Rosenberg since 1941. It was really the first time that the congregation had employed a rabbi for more than a year or two, other than the on-again, off-again Rabbi Montague Cohen. And during the Second World War, their Rabbi Rosenberg was drafted into the military, which is why young Jack Warnick, Fred's older brother, had his bar mitzvah at the shul. And his return from military service, Rabbi Rosenberg led Temple Beth Israel through 1955. Meanwhile, at Tacoma's Orthodox congregation, Talmud Torah, had transitioned to conservative practices in 1937 with the arrival of Rabbi Baruch Treiger. And I admit, as I was researching him, I developed kind of a rabbi crush on him. He started youth programs that welcomed Jewish teens from both congregations. They had an intramural basketball team known as the Hebrew Moderates. They started as the Young Hebrew Moderates, but they got old. And they played in the city's church league. Rabbi Treiger also created an interdenominational lecture series that grew dramatically over 5 years, with tremendous buy-in from the community. And those lectures came at a time when horrendous anti-Jewish propaganda was coming out of Europe. Rabbi Treiger stood out in Tacoma as a brilliant, articulate, educated man, a much-needed positive role model of a Jewish leader. And he was a Zionist. Rabbi Treiger and his wife, the former Lena Farber, and those of you who are doing genealogy, that's Steph Farber's aunt, spent the summer of 1938 traveling in Europe, North Africa, and what was then Palestine. That was a name adopted for the region mandated to Great Britain by the League of Nations after the First World War. The Trigers brought back movies of Haifa, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv. In early November of 1938, Talmud Torah offered public viewings of Rabbi Trager's film footage in conjunction with a celebration honoring the 20th anniversary of the 1918 European armistice. Instead, those in power in Germany did not celebrate the anniversary. That was the night of Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. And personally, I think I had forgotten that those two events coincided. Well, at the time, Tacoma had 5 thriving Jewish women's groups. 5. Hadassah, Council of Jewish Women, Sisterhood of Temple Beth Israel, the Women's Auxiliary of Talmud Torah, and a B'nai B'rith auxiliary known as Destiny Council number 14. All 5 immediately banded together and formed the Hadassah Joint Council of Tacoma, coordinating their support of the efforts of the Red Cross, the USO, and the Jewish Welfare Relief, under the leadership of Lena Trager, wife of Rabbi Trager. Tacoma's Hadassah chapter had earlier sponsored hospital showers, asking guests to bring donations of hospital supplies. And now they sponsored cigarette showers, asking guests to bring donations of cigarettes to distribute to the servicemen. No wonder my father learned to smoke in the Navy. Rabbi Trager was what we would today call a news junkie. He subscribed to publications from all around the world. He was an avid reader, and he kept his congregants informed. As all eyes were glued to maps of Europe, he did a series of sermons on Europe's great cities and the history of the ghetto. Shabbat onegs often included programs such as student debates or guest lectures. Most often, Rabbi Trager simply led informal discussions about current events. In 1940, he sent a telegram to President Franklin D. Roosevelt supporting his peace efforts. And Rabbi Trager's telegram included the beautiful blessing, "May God lengthen your days and strengthen your hands to enable you to carry out the mission which has been placed upon you at this time." But the American government was preparing for war. Both McCord Field and the Tacoma Narrows Bridge opened in July of 1940, not for convenience of motorists, essential for connecting the military with the naval yards in Bremerton. And in November, just after the Sukkot shelters came down, so did Galloping Gertie. Tacoma's Jewish community would eventually send nearly 100 young men to military service in World War II. Can you imagine if we sent 100 servicemen from this congregation today? 100. Through most of the war, from 1942 to 1945, Talmud Torah was led by Rabbi Julius Dekoven. Well, as a child, he had emigrated from Russia as Yasel Duchovna, and when he came to Tacoma, he took the last name Dekoven. He was president of the Zionist District of Tacoma, was also active in the Jewish Welfare Board. When he left Tacoma, he changed his first name from Julius to Joel, and in the 60s, he became a yoga guru in Sherman Oaks, California. Really, I have a copy of his book, The Rabbi Stands on His Head, with a provocative subtitle, A Joyous Look into the Worlds of Yoga, Judaism, and Sex. He also took the innovative approach of building his own synagogue and running it as his own business. He offered memberships or charged admission, hired his own staff, and didn't have to answer to a board or worry about contract renewals. The members of Talmud Torah Synagogue also took a new name, changing to Sinai Temple in October of 1945. And due to the timing of that change, it was likely in response to the post-war humanitarian crisis of displaced persons. At the times, Jews around the world were praying for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. In 1946, Sinai Temple welcomed Rabbi Leo Trepp to Tacoma. Well, he had just graduated from Harvard, but earlier in his career, he had been a rabbi in pre-war Germany. He led Tacoma's Sinai congregation to affiliate with the United Synagogues of America. That's when the Women's Auxiliary took the name Sisterhood, while the men formed a brotherhood. And the following year, the citywide B'nai B'rith brought Orson Welles to Tacoma as part of Brotherhood Week, the same week that Britain chose to end its mandate with Palestine. Britain transferred the issue to the United Nations, which led to the plan to partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. So in the spring of 1948, Tacoma's Hadassah chapter hosted its annual donor luncheon, yes, they were having them then, in the Wedgwood Room of the then elegant Winthrop Hotel. The speaker was identified as a frequent traveler to Palestine, Rabbi David DeSola Poole. The same women gathered again just a few weeks later to mourn the loss of Hadassah workers killed in an Arab attack on a medical convoy in Jerusalem. They also heard from Seattle's Bailey Nider, recently returned from fighting with the Haganah Defense Forces. And as we know, in May of 1948, the Jews of Palestine declared the independent state of Israel. That exact same week, the Sinai congregation celebrated its 40th anniversary. The congregation's home was a beautiful brick building built in 1925 on the west side of Wright Park. Tragically, that building would be demolished in 1968, part of the price we paid for the construction of this. In June of 1948, Rabbi Trepp led the confirmation of two young women at Tacoma's Sinai Temple. One was Lois Guzman, daughter of Irving Guzman, a regional Zionist leader. The other was Beverly Dobry. She was a daughter of Leo Dobry, who had just taken his race car, the City of Tacoma, to the Indianapolis 500, earning his place in Tacoma sports history. Well, Rabbi Trepp spent his summers touring for the Zionist Organization of America, which eventually took him to positions elsewhere. Throughout the remainder of his life, Rabbi Trepp worked for reconciliation with post-war Germany. He returned annually to Germany to teach, and in fact, a Rabbi TV studied with him. When Rabbi Trepp died in 2010, he was known as the last living pre-Holocaust German rabbi. Well, Passover of 1949 was a momentous occasion as next year in Jerusalem, for the first time, became this year. But yet, just as Jews around the world saw their Passover dream fulfilled, the Jews of Tacoma suffered the loss of a child, Marvin Klegman, killed at his school in Tacoma's Passover earthquake. In June, North Korea invaded South Korea, and yet another conflict began. A new Narrows Bridge opened in November of 1950, again connecting the various Puget Sound military locations. So now you have a glimpse of what Tacoma's Jewish community looked like in the 40s. It was vibrant, well-informed, and actively supporting a Jewish homeland in Israel. A 1989 interview with Rabbi Rosenthal of blessed memory noted that by the 50s, Jews as a whole were as monolithic as they were going to be in their entire history. He noted that the world's Jews had lived through the Second World War and had seen the rise of Israel, things that shaped people and created a generation with much in common. He felt that those similarities helped make possible the 1960 merger between Temple Beth Israel and Sinai Temple, creating our Temple Bethel. Most significantly, he said that the merger was, in a sense, I quote, sort of an inheritance we have as a community here. Sort of an inheritance. Well, she said cleverly, there's also an inheritance mentioned in this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim. It's easy to get lost in the long lists of prohibitions in Leviticus, but you'll also find an occasional promise of a reward, as you shall inherit their land. and I will give it to you to possess it, a land flowing with milk and honey. We hope that will continue to be the case in Israel. I pray that next year's 75th anniversary of Israel's independence is truly a celebration. And I trust that here in Tacoma, we will continue to respect our inheritance of our community's history. We are again poised to welcome a new rabbi. We've done this before. Over the past 125 years, our community has welcomed a new rabbi more than 20 times. We've come together in times of war and in times of peace. Perhaps we should look at the opening sentences of the Kiddushim portion, commanding us to be holy, to live a holy life. My sense is that the future of our congregation, how we interact with our new rabbi and our fellow congregants, is up to us. Whether we are from conservative or reform backgrounds, whether we're Northwest natives or Tacomans by choice, it is up to us to be holy, to live a holy life. It is up to us to maintain a Jewish community and to pass that inheritance to our children. Todah Rabbah and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Debbie for all of that amazing, interesting, and very fun history. I think you're writing a book too, aren't you? It's here. Oh, good. So if you have any questions about the past, she is the person to check in with. Thank you. We're going to continue with announcements, and Maddie Pimentel-Diaz is going to share those with us, member of our board, as well as somebody who brings people together and who is an amazing teacher. So she has many things, I'm sure, that are coming up. Welcome.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you guys so much for getting here safely. I know it was a bit treacherous coming from Spanaway with that awesome downpour. I just pretended I was in a car wash and I sang the whole time. So it was good. I'm glad everyone's able to come here. It's nice to see more people coming back. It's returning to our normal, if you will, but our better normal, because we know how to keep our hands safe and not lick doorknobs. Anyway, so here's what we got going on. This Saturday, we have Torah study in Shabbat services at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Again, if you're coming in person for anything, make sure you always wear a mask when we're at medium level. There's also a Zoom Havdalah at 7:30 p.m. The link is available in the Shabbat Shalom. Some upcoming events that we have are including a rabbi, a priest, and a minister, which is a virtual Jewish humor presented by Herb Levine and Joel Heckstein. I hope I pronounced that right. That's Sunday, May 8th and May 15th from 1 to 2 p.m. I hear it's quite a hoot, so if you're into Jewish comedy, get your laugh on. We also have This Is the End, How Movies Prepared Us for the Apocalypse, which is an in-person event, Wednesday, May 11th at 7 p.m. If you're a fan of the Day After Tomorrow, Children of Men, and The Midnight Sky, then you may have apocalypse mania and a condition characterized by deriving excessive pleasure from a dystopian movie and spending a disproportionate amount of time thinking about the fall of civilization. That's me, secretly. I am a sci-fi gal. We also have Just Add Water, which is an introduction to mikveh URJ class. It's virtual, Thursday, May 12th from 5 to 6 p.m. If any of you are in the process of converting, thinking of converting, or just haven't had your mikveh, make sure that this is something that you get information on. It's a great process, and it's cleansing. We also have our Erev Shabbat and Teacher Appreciation Service, which is multi-access, Friday, May 13th at 7:30 p.m. Teachers we're going to be honoring, the ones that support our community. We've got a lot of littles, a lot of mediums, and unfortunately, I got 2 of the larges at my house. They eat all the food, and they're wonderful. On Sunday, May 15th, which is not this Sunday, but the next, we're having a religious school end-of-year picnic. Basically, these kids have worked their butts off between in-person, back to Zoom, back to in-person. They've navigated it with class, I tell you. 5th and 6th graders are kind of difficult to wrangle. They made the job easy. We're going to have food, carnival games, art, spin art. There'll be lots of fun things to do, and it's something for everyone, old and young and medium and fresh and not so fresh. So if you guys want something nice to do, to come meet some of our kids, meet our teachers, and most importantly, meet Rabbi Gorbin, she will be there. Definitely a nice opportunity to schmooze in the fun. We also have a Music of Remembrance, which is 3 minutos, meaning 3 minutes. It's an in-person event, Sunday, May 15th at 5:30 p.m. It's going to be scenes we see at the southern border confront us all with ongoing humanitarian crisis. 3 minutos, a path-breaking new opera that MOR has commissioned from composer Nicholas Benavides and librettist Marela Martin Koch, is a timely reminder that beyond the arguments about immigration policy are actual people with real lives, deep emotions, and complicated relationships. No matter what anyone says, immigration is not a problem, it's a solution, and if it wasn't for immigration, many of us, if not all, wouldn't be here today. So thank you, immigration. Last but not least, if you haven't signed up yet, we have TBE baseball with the Tacoma Rainiers. I got my tickets. I'm taking my whole pack, so if you want to see some good-looking Jewish kids, go ahead and get your tickets. They're $16 a piece, and they include a hot dog, chips, a drink, and a program, and you get to sit with some of the coolest cats in Tacoma in the TBE section. Those tickets, if you're interested in getting those, they're located on our website. You'll just follow the links through, put your information in, and shazam, you're there. So let's go out to the ball game, y'all. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thanks, Maddie. As we turn towards the conclusion of our service, we're going to begin with the Misha Berach prayer on page 253. Every Shabbat, we pause to say Misha Berach meaning the one who blesses, and we ask God to bless us with refuah shlema, complete recovery of body, of mind, of spirit, and we offer the names of those that we want to say aloud so that all can hear as we go around the room. And if there are names, just raise your hand and share it with us all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd also like to think of those in Ukraine who are struggling tonight. Bev Wolfers, Jim Friedman, and Lynn Spellman. That's all. We're going to join together as we sing on page 253 in the middle of the page. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe berach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We now move to the concluding prayers of our service, beginning on page 282 and 287 with Aleinu as the ark is open. It's at the bottom of the page. Please rise, and those at home as well. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. We continue on page 290, a reading before the Mourner's Kaddish. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. On this Shabbat, we begin by asking those who are in mourning, who have lost someone in the past day or week, to please rise. We invite you to say the names out loud if you care to. Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'll ask those to rise who are observing a yahrzeit on this Shabbat. To all of those, we say in the tradition on page 3, Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avilei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. In our community, in the period of Shloshim, we are remembering Carolyn Bassett, and we are observing yahrzeits on this Shabbat for Rose Alpert, Morley Brotman, Janie Crotty, Fanny Eastern, Mark Joshua Eisen, Etta Fine, Mac Fingerroot, Ronald Glickman, Anne Lillian Kartzman, Evelyn Cadis, Sidney Levance, Louis A. Lawson, Sid Lockitch, Max Meyer, George Montopoli, Ethel Pliskow, Serafima Rappaport, Alice Rosenthal, Harry Rotman, Jerry Rubenstein, Gertrude Schneider, Bill Schumer, Marlene Tone, Anna Toriel, Jay Max, and Martha Webb. For all of them and for those that have no one to say Kaddish for them, we rise as a community to say the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirute v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye decho beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barich hu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromal hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We say zichronam livracha. May they be remembered, all that they did and all that they gave as a blessing. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. So we're just about to conclude our service. Thank you again for coming, and welcome again to Rabbi Cadden's class. Glad you were here. If you have any questions after the service about music or things like that, I'm also available. And before we conclude, a few thank yous. First to Debbie Japp, our accompanist extraordinaire. I'm so blessed to have her in our community. Deb Friedman for her beautiful words this evening. Thank you so much. Kat Ellis and new tech, Melanie Gladstone is here. So thank you for being here and monitoring so that we can continue all access with our camera in the back up there. Maddie Pimentel Diaz for her wonderful words. Lots going on as usual at the temple. And our head of security, Sean Berthel, who is out there in the rain making sure that we are safe, head of our security. We're going to conclude with an Adonolam, which is on page 321, page 321. And this is a French Sephardic melody. This is of the Sephardic Jews who went to France and then took up the melodies of French. So it doesn't sound Spanish or Sephardic at all, but it's a beautiful melody. So join with me as we conclude. Adon olam asher mahalach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'et nasa v'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'ho haya ve'ho ve'ho yeh betifara ve'ho yeh betifara ve'ho echad ve'en sheni lesham shelo lehachmira beli reshit beli tachlit ve'lo ha'oz ve'ha'misra ve'lo ha'oz ve'ha'misra ve'hu eli ve'chai go'ali ve'tzochev li ve'etzahara ve'hu nisi omanos li menat kosi ve'yom ekra menat kosi ve'yom ekra be'yado avkid rochi be'et ishan ve'ayira ve'im rochi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Adonai li ve'lo ira. Shabbat Shalom. As we conclude, we're going to do a Kiddush and Motzi, a blessing over the wine and over bread of the earth. And I'm going to invite Rabbi Cadden to come up and Leslie Birnbaum as well, if she would like. And we're on pages 2 and 3 in the prayer book, pages 2 and 3. Actually, on page 5, not 2 or 3. There you go. And Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Let's rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kirvanu v'achartav ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabat lechaim, to life. And the motzi of bread you can find in your pamphlet or on page, I think, 300 and, well, you're unwrapping it. Page 302. Page 302. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz v'te'avon. Te'avon, a good meal. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Do wish each other a good Shabbos. And take a piece of challah on your way out. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.